Okay, thank you for joining us today. The Lunchtime Lecture Series is the director of the programs series at the School of Architecture of the University of Miami. We also have the Technoglass Lecture Series, which this year will be coordinated by Dean Rodolphe El-Houri, and which will start this coming Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. That lecture will have the presence of Fabrizio Barozzi from Barozzi Viega, one of the most important firms in the contemporary landscape of Spain. Today, we have the honor of having with us Felipe Assadi. Felipe graduated as an architect from the University Finis Terrae in Chile. He also received a master's degree from the Pontificia Universidad Católica in Santiago. In 1999, he won the Promoción Joven prize of the Colegio de Arquitectos in Chile, awarded to the best architect under the age of 35. He has taught at universities in Chile, Mexico, Brazil, Italy, Colombia, and in the United States. Since 2011, he has been the Dean of the School of Architecture at the Universidad Finis Terrae. His work has been published in Wallpaper and the Architectural Review in London, Arquitectura Viva and AV Monografías in Madrid, Architectural Record in New York, GA in Tokyo, and Domus and Casabella in Milan. He has also participated in exhibitions in Chicago, Barcelona, Pamplona, London, Quito, Tokyo, Venecia and Santiago, and his works have been constructed in Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Mexico, Peru, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, the United States, and Ecuador. Felipe and a group of 8 other Chilean architects, urbanists, graphic designers, and mechanical engineers are currently teaching a very challenging and complex 5-week online course in our school. Today, he's joining us from Santiago and has requested the translation of portions of his lecture for the sake of clarity and because English is not his mother tongue, nor is it mine. But in all fairness, I hope to make justice to whatever he's going to say. So please welcome Felipe Assadi and his critical mass lecture. Adelante. Oh, no tienes, el micrófono está, your microphone is off, Felipe.
Ahora sí.
Yeah, thank you.
Bueno, gracias Jaime por esta invitación a dar este curso y por poder mostrar un poco mi trabajo aquí. Como vas a traducir, voy a hacer primero los textos y luego ir mostrando imágenes.
Okay, so thank you very much, Jaime. Thank you, Dean El-Houri. Thank you for allowing us to teach the course and for showing my work. And since you're going to translate, I'm going to talk about the projects first, and then I'm going to show some images.
Bueno, masa crítica se llama una parte de mi trabajo que apunta de alguna manera a retomar aspectos del territorio de Chile, a pesar de que el trabajo se desarrolla muchas veces fuera de Chile también.
So critical mass is the type of work that I'm doing right now, and it's basically a retaking of the territorial aspects of Chile. And even though my work is not only produced in Chile, but in other parts of the world.
Siempre he pensado que nuestra relación con la naturaleza es más fuerte que nuestra relación con la historia en Chile. Por lo tanto, podría decir que somos un país más geográfico que histórico y, por consiguiente, los aspectos fundamentales en los que se basa el trabajo de la arquitectura en mi oficina están más relacionados con la materia que con aspectos teóricos.
So I've always thought that in Chile, our relationship with nature is greater than our relationship with history. Geography has a lot more presence than history in our work, and fundamentally, the fundamental aspect of our work is precisely the materials of architecture.
Estas imágenes pertenecen al desierto de Atacama, en el norte de Chile, en las que podemos ver contrastes importantes entre reacciones del material debido a la naturaleza, al clima, a la composición química, y nos hablan de cómo las fuerzas de la naturaleza ponen en crisis también a la materia que la compone.
Okay, these images are from the Atacama Desert in the north part of Chile, and they show a true contrast between matter, climate, the chemical composition of the place, and show us also how the forces of nature make us think of architecture.
De la materia, de la geografía, de la tierra, nace también un pensamiento acerca del rol que tiene el peso sobre la arquitectura. El peso entendido como aquella fuerza que se ejerce gracias a la gravedad sobre una superficie.
From matter, geography, and earth comes also the concept that we use in our architecture, which is the concept of weight. Weight understood as that force that is exercised over anything that is physical. Yeah.
Y bueno, tierras de contrastes que nos hablan también de la relación entre lo pesado y lo liviano, que me han hecho, por una parte, centrar mi trabajo en lo que es netamente la estructura.
So these images also show the land, the contrast between what is heavy and what is not that heavy, and that influences directly the way that I think about structure in architecture.
Por otro lado, está el hacer con las manos, que implica tener en cuenta el tiempo que se requiere para que los materiales que provienen de la tierra funcionen y lleven a un final de forma.
So or from another perspective, we are also interested in what is done with the hands. And what is done with the hands requires a little bit of time and patience to be able to see how over time things take form and end up in a final object like the one that you're seeing on the screen.
Aquí, por ejemplo, un artesano trabaja con la tierra, una forma que repite, una forma que tiene una base sólida y es estable, y en contraste también un artesano con la misma tierra puede trabajar formas muy sofisticadas, mucho más livianas, delicadas, no repetitivas, y están hechas ambas con el mismo material y con el mismo tiempo.
So two examples. The first example show a crafter working with earth, in which the base is absolutely solid and the object is heavy, while the second image shows also a craftsman that has worked with the same earth, but has produced elements that are totally light and very sophisticated.
Aquí también muestro a uno de mis escultores favoritos, chileno, Federico Basler, que trabaja con el concreto, y él trabaja de una manera como también quizás trabajamos los arquitectos el concreto. Él piensa un negativo y lo construye para luego obtener de él un positivo, no construido, pero producto de aquello primero que hizo.
So in this image, I'm showing one of my favorite sculptors, Federico Basler, who works in concrete, and the material itself, or to work with this material, it is important to understand that you think on the material negatively. I mean, you always produce the negative before you produce the final element, which is the positive of what you had in your mind.
En contrario, una aldea del mismo desierto de Atacama se construye ya en positivo. Y en esta imagen, el negativo es aquello que la arena cubrió durante miles de años y que se descubre cuando este peso de la naturaleza empieza a desaparecer.
So on the contrary, I mean, this is a village built in the positive, in the same desert of Atacama. And the negative in this case is the sand that covered this for a long period of time.
Bien, entendiendo entonces este concepto del material, de la estructura y del peso,
Understanding the concept of material, structure, and weight,
generamos una idea de proyecto que dice que preferimos
Esto es lo que encontré.
estructurar una habitación antes, habitar una estructura antes que estructurar una habitación.
Okay, so we generate an idea of a project in which we prefer to inhabit a structure than produce a structure to be inhabited. Is that correct?
Not really. I prefer to inhabit a structure than to structure a room, for example.
Okay, to structure.
Okay. En este caso, un primer proyecto que mostraré que no se construyó, se trata de una casa que es su estructura en primera instancia.
So this is an unbuilt project, and the project is basically a structure. Yeah.
Y podríamos decir que la arquitectura entonces es su propia estructura antes de ser una arquitectura.
So the architecture is really the structure before it really becomes a piece of architecture.
Okay. Esta pieza se compone de 4 caras de concreto que unidas entre sí forman una gran viga que se incrusta en la tierra y vuela sobre el paisaje. De otro modo, habría que haber hecho una serie de pilares para sostenerla, pero como es una viga estructural en sí misma, se comporta como un solo elemento.
Okay, this is a piece of architecture that has 4 faces of concrete, but at the same time is a beam that is embedded in the land. And if we had done it some other way, we would have needed columns on the ground, but because it's a gigantic beam, it can be cantilevered over the geography, as you can see on the screen.
Para lograr esto, se piensa muros techo y piso con el mismo criterio estructural y por lo tanto son partes del mismo elemento. No son independientes entre sí, son colaborativos.
So walls, roofs, and floors are not independent projects or independent elements, but they're all collaborating with each other to form this gigantic solid piece.
Luego de este proyecto nació una casa en el norte de Chile que pretendía tener 2 niveles y estábamos pensando en este proyecto unitario que fuese una sola cosa. No pensarla como una casa, sino pensarla como una estructura habitable.
So this project called Bahía Azul is in the north of Chile. Originally, it has 2 levels, but we thought of it not as that, but as a structure that could be inhabited very, very easily. And I suppose he's going to explain what that means.
La estructura podría estar soportando los 2 niveles siendo una sola y por lo tanto decidimos trabajar con un volumen inclinado. Al inclinarlo teníamos entonces 2 niveles, que era lo que el cliente quería, en una sola estructura compacta.
So the inclination, it's because the client argued for 2 levels. So we wanted to have one single structure. At the time that we inclined the structure, we were able to produce the 2 levels that the client wanted in the first place.
Muros y cubierta y suelo se complementan para generar una gran membrana estructural de concreto que en sí misma es estructura sólida y autoportante.
So walls, roof, and floor all become part of one single membrane that is surrounding this structure and that form this sort of solid object in the landscape.
Desaparece aquí el concepto común de suelo, porque está inclinado, de techo, porque está inclinado, de ventana, porque no existen, son simples perforaciones en una superficie, y el concepto de muro, porque es a la vez una membrana estructural.
Okay, all the traditional concepts are absent in this structure. Say the concept of ground does not exist because the structure is inclined. The roof also does not exist because sometimes there is a roof, sometimes there's no roof. And the windows are simple perforations, so there are really no windows. And the concept of wall is also a concept of a membrane that is not really the typical wall of a traditional house.
Y, por supuesto, se inicia una relación con el paisaje y con el contexto de un modo muy dramático, muy cercano.
As a result of all these strategies, there's a clear relationship between the house or the structure and the general landscape that makes a clear relationship that makes you feel very close to the general landscape.
Este es un proyecto de masa. El encargo era hacer en una sola construcción un proyecto que tuviese 4 usos muy distintos.
So this project is also a mass project. The client wanted one single building, but with 4 different uses.
Para poder entender el concepto de una sola casa con 4 cosas distintas, planteamos un pabellón con un techo en diagonal y luego cortamos 3 veces este pabellón y giramos cada parte para generar el acceso a cada una de las áreas.
Okay, so there's one single house, and to be able to have the single house with the 4 different objects or 4 different functions, we inclined the roof, rotated 4 elements. Once we did 3 cuts on the general form, and through one of those cuts is how you access each one of the 4 functions.
Cubrimos el proyecto de un material inventado, diseñamos una palmeta de concreto con fibra, con un shape que hicimos para que la luz del sol en su recorrido fuese también tiñendo de sombras estos movimientos.
Yeah, we covered the roof with a material of our own invention, which is concrete with fiber. And that what the result of the whole ordeal was that when the light hits the objects, it produces shades and shadows that are quite interesting.
Solo en el lugar del corte quedó el concreto rugoso, digamos, como estaba, para acentuar la idea de que fue cortado como si fuese un cuchillo y separado.
So only in the cuts, we kept the concrete as it was supposed to be, as if a knife would have severed each one of these volumes.
Y el interior quedó así, rugoso, tal como era la estructura matriz, de modo de que dentro de él también se entiende la idea de estar habitando una estructura y nada más que eso, solo la estructura.
So the interior is kept rough, just like the original, and the sensation that one gets is that we're inhabiting a structure. Nothing more than that, a structure.
En el mismo sitio creamos un taller de pintura para la dueña de la casa.
The same site, we created an atelier, an art for an artist, which is the owner of the house.
Y ella notó que los vanos de la estructura de la casa inclinada eran verdaderos cuadros de arte. Ese era, en el fondo, su paisaje era el cuadro que ella quería pintar.
She noticed that in the openings, when she looked through the openings, what she really saw were pieces of art. And she decided that that was exactly what she wanted to paint.
Entonces, en el lugar del proyecto, fuimos a ver cuál era el paisaje que a ella le gustaba mucho y dibujamos una ventana en el aire, supuestamente.
So we went to the site and we basically, once she told us that this idea, we went to the site and we painted a window basically in the air to give us the framing for what we were going to do later.
Luego extruimos esta ventana en el concreto hacia el cerro, un poco parecido a la casa, la primera casa que mostré, de esta barra que se mete al cerro.
Then we extruded this window all the way to the mountain in a similar fashion as the house that I showed at the very beginning of this lecture.
Y finalmente entendimos el proyecto como la extrusión de una ventana.
And finally, we understood the project as the extruding of one single window.
Aquí hay algo que comentar respecto de la escalera.
Here, there's something that I would like to comment in reference to the stairs.
Cuando hicimos la excavación para hacer la escalera, también en concreto, notamos que la roca del cerro estaba muy presente y era muy importante preservarla.
When we started doing the excavation to produce the stairs, which were originally conceived as concrete stairs, we noticed that the rock that was holding the structure was very important. And so during the process of construction, we decided to keep the stairs very light so that we could have a contrast between the solid concrete of the structure and the lightness of the stairs and the transparency towards the rock in the foundation.
Aquí hay una imagen de ambos proyectos, la casa tilt, ¿cierto? La casa inclinada, y este otro proyecto que es el taller de pintura que tiene un techo, jardín, que proyecta la vegetación hacia el mar, y luego vemos aquí entonces cómo esta escalera que hablábamos recién rompe el cerro para entrar.
So here we see two projects, the tilted house and the atelier for the artist, which is covered with a green roof. And in the middle of the picture, you see the stairs going all the way down, accessing the studio.
Bien, en esta casa, también en el norte de Chile, al borde del mar, había una situación de llegar al lugar y contemplar el paisaje sobre una explanada producto de una roca.
Yeah, this is another house in the north of Chile, very close to the ocean. And the approach to the house is essential because when you arrive there, you arrive through an esplanade, but there's a rock that drops down abruptly and gave us the location for the siting of the house.
No era tan importante entrar a la casa como subirse a ella y observar el mar. Quisimos...
Entering the house was not as important as to climb on the house, to be able to look at the ocean from this unique place.
Y ahí entendimos que estaba todo conectado. El techo era el mirador del mar y tenía que ser tan importante como el interior de la casa.
So the roof all of a sudden became this fabulous terrace for sightseeing, the geography, and the roof became almost more important than the house.
Así como los lugares tenían igualdad de importancia, los elementos que los hacían posible tenían que tener entonces también igualdad de importancia.
In the same manner that the roof and the rest of the house had equal importance, all the elements that we put into the house should also get the privilege of having the same importance.
Entonces buscamos que hubiese un continuo entre el acceso y el techo y el acceso y la casa, su piso.
So we look for a continuum access to the roof and to the house itself.
Y que hubiese también un espesor común para todos los elementos. Es decir, tanto la losa del techo como la losa del piso debían tener el mismo espesor, también el puente, el muro y la escalera.
So we looked for commonalities in all the elements, and we decided that the thickness of every element should be the same. The thickness of the roof, the thickness of the floor, the thickness of the slab for the stairs, for the ramp, everything had the same thickness.
Pero la estructura no se comporta siempre igual para elementos iguales. No trabaja igual una losa que un muro.
Yeah, but the structure does not always behave in the same manner when it's a roof than when it's a wall.
Por lo tanto, tuvimos que suplir ciertos elementos para que los esfuerzos estructurales estuviesen equilibrados. Y en este caso, por ejemplo, se agregaron pequeños trozos también de muro.
Yeah. So in order to compensate for that, we needed to add a few pieces of wall that were cantilevered here and there.
Al lado derecho aparece 1 metro cuadrado de muro de concreto.
On the right-hand side, you can see a piece of wall that is about 1.5 meters.
Que está afirmado a la tierra, que hace que el muro del puente se mantenga derecho.
And that cantilevering wall is simply a structural device to make the wall of the bridge stay in its straight position.
Y al lado izquierdo, hacia el mar, aparece también un muro que hace que la estructura se mantenga estable en ese punto con respecto al resto de la casa.
And on the left, you can also see a little bit of wall that allow us to make the house stable. Yeah.
Aquí podemos ver el espesor de los elementos, la escalera, el puente, el techo y el piso.
So here you can see that every single element has the exact same thickness. The stairs, the roof, the walls, the floor.
Finalmente, los elementos de la casa funcionan como una cinta continua que la recorre completa.
So finally, the elements of the whole house are like a ribbon that go throughout the house and surround it completely.
Bueno, y para finalizar, les voy a mostrar la casa H.
To end, I'm going to show you the Casa H, Casa H.
Ajá. Aquí pusimos en juego esta idea de habitar una estructura que es compleja y el proyecto de arquitectura se somete a este elemento estructural.
So in this case, we're inhabiting a very complex structure, and the architectural project is really secondary to this object, this structural object.
Pero cuando la necesidad de la arquitectura tiene un compromiso directo con la estructura, ambas cosas son inseparables.
Yeah. But when the architecture is thought of complementary to the structure, architecture and structure became inseparable.
Y cualquier modificación al proyecto modifica una estructura que ya es compleja y por lo tanto deben convivir en un estado de desarrollo en paralelo.
And so both need to exist in a parallel realm, because when they're so close together, any modification in one will affect the other.
Esta casa es un juego de elementos que se van superponiendo unos sobre otros.
This is a series of volumes that are modified and that are superimposed one on top of the other.
Y se inician con dos losas paralelas que arman todo el programa arquitectónico.
The whole initiation of the concept comes from two parallel slabs that make the whole project basically work.
Y están unidas solamente por 4 muros verticales, que son aquellos que aparecen ahí arriba.
And they're joined by 4 vertical walls that are the ones that are appearing here on this view.
Y están estructuradas con vigas de hormigón largas, tanto hacia arriba como hacia abajo. Hacia arriba la losa superior y hacia abajo la losa inferior.
So the structure is a concrete structure that works in conjunction between the slab on the top and the slab at the bottom, with these 4 vertical walls joining them together.
Y todo este elemento se apoya por una parte en el cerro y por otra parte en otros 2 elementos estructurales que luego arman la piscina y que se incrustan en el cerro, generando ahí el cantilever.
So the beauty about this building is that it is held by the mountain, at the same time cantilever on the mountain, and supported by 2 new elements, one of which is also structural element that then becomes the pool of the house, and the other one a foundation for the cantilever of the house.
Ajá. Los elementos estructurales que la componen no están construidos todos en conjunto, sino fueron elementos puestos unos arriba de otros.
So structural elements are not all joined in the typical manner, but they were put one on top of the other.
Aquí se ve, por ejemplo, cómo las vigas que arman el volumen de servicios y piscina hacia el mar soportan las vigas longitudinales de la losa de abajo sobre ellos.
So here you can see part of the complexity that I'm talking about. The beams are holding the slabs, but at the same time, those beams are supported by structural elements that will then become the pool of the house and the service of the house.
Ajá. Lo que logramos con esta estructura compuesta fue tener elementos que vuelan de la casa de 7 metros de longitud, que es bastante para Chile.
So this is a composite structure of which we're very proud because when you look at it, it makes you feel that the elements are floating, they're like flying, sometimes even up to 7 meters, which is really atypical in Chile.
De alguna manera, estos elementos desafían la gravedad gracias a que están puestos en forma de cantilever, están presionándose a sí mismos.
In some way, they're all challenging gravity because all the elements are not placed in the normal manner in which one is over the other, but they're all cantilevering somehow and making you perceive that the objects are independent and that they're all floating in the mountain.
Aquí se ve, por ejemplo, como el volumen de la piscina viene de atrás y soporta la casa, también soporta la rampa, que a su vez tiene su propia estructura, y todo ello va montado uno arriba del otro.
So here you can see the volume of the pool, holding the volume of the ramp, holding the house, holding the service areas, and all of them form one single unit, but each one looks separated from the other. I mean, like independent.
Y en esta imagen del interior se ve el muro que veíamos desde el exterior, un gran muro de concreto que recorre toda la casa, que se transforma en un mueble que lo uso mucho en este tipo de programas, que es un mueble que en su recorrido por la casa va cambiando su función.
So the wall that we saw on the roof, when it comes into the house, it becomes a large piece of furniture that I use a lot in my houses, and that is a transformative element that changes from room to room and is adapted to several functions.
Estar frente al mar en este lugar en el que hay dos losas paralelas marca la horizontalidad de este paisaje, reforzando esta situación de estar frente al océano.
So the parallel slabs that you see on the screen are also a reflection of that parallel line that you see all the way at the back, representing the ocean. So there's a correlation between what we were trying to do in the house and the geography of this area of Chile.
Y bueno, eso es
Well, this is it. Thank you very much. I hope that my free translation did not damage your beautiful projects.
It was fantastic, Jaime. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions? By the way, we were just joined by, or not just, but at the very beginning by Dean El Huri. So probably we should ask him to ask the first question.
Está sin audio. Jaime.
You're muted.
No, not the first question. I'm here to listen.
Opinions, Dean.
Well, of course, I am very sympathetic to this kind of work. I don't know, Felipe, if you are familiar with one of the books I have written. Actually, it's an exhibition catalog called Monolithic Architecture.
Not yet.
We should look at it because it talks about similar, like describes a variety of projects which actually like to think of architecture in terms of its monolithic nature. Sometimes, like you describe, as a structure, like almost like a found objects that is then inhabited and turned into architecture by that layer of inhabitation that is actually then brought to the object, which stands autonomously outside of architecture. So some similar interests. So yes, I'm very touched by the work because it takes that aspect of monolithic architecture into a new direction. Actually, a direction that reminds me of the early, the more radical aspects of brutalist architecture, like with Le Corbusier, when again there was this notion of the building as something that is completely stripped of the ornamental layer that accommodates like domestic life, for instance. It's very interesting.
I will look for that book. It seems very interesting to read about it.
Right. So that book was, and the exhibition was at, it was all came out at the at the moment of so-called deconstructivist architecture. It was like a critique of that moment, proposing the dialectical other of what was described as deconstructivism. So the monolith.
When was the exhibition?
1992.
Deconstructivist architecture was 1992, right? But this exhibition and book was 1995, or I think, yes.
The other thing that is fundamental in everything that you showed is that it's not just the typical brutalist architecture that we see in other parts of the world, but it's a brutalist architecture that is embedded in a very particular landscape. In Chile you have that extraordinary geography that allows you to do these things. Any object, any simple object that you put in the landscape in Chile is essentially disruptive enough to create the type of beauty that you're showing us here today. Obviously you're a master doing what you do, but to me, that's one of the most satisfactory things when I go to Chile. That every time that I see a piece of architecture, it's like, there's always a relationship between the architecture itself, the space itself, and the landscape, and the landscape is like right there in front of you. It's massive, and it's like overwhelming. In the south, in the north, in the center, everywhere.
Sure. When we were committed to build the tilt house, that was not tilt in that moment. It was very difficult to think in a house in that place over the rocks. Whatever you do in this fragile context is or could be a mistake. Mm-hmm. So when we thought about this house, we knew that whatever you do here have to be in continuous contradiction with the landscape. Mm-hmm. Maybe that was a first approach to make something like land art while we were doing a house, or to see, to understand that house, not just a house, but a little piece of land art, and to provoke the geography to have a dramatical and critical relation between the piece, the put piece by someone, and those rocks in the ocean. When we tilt the volume, and when we thought the windows without windows, so a windowsless house is like a ruin, no? The first thing that the people stole in a ruin are the windows, because they can reuse them. So when you see a windowless house, frameless windows in a house, or a glassless windows in a house, your commotion, because maybe you are looking for or seeing something like a ruin, and that ruin talks some story in the surroundings of this fragile site. So we saw it, and we projected, in this case, like a big box, no sé cómo se dice abandonado.
Deserted. Abandoned, deserted. Yeah.
Abandoned box in the ocean, in this limit.
Okay, are there any other questions? Because there's a class starting in about 2 minutes in Glasgow, so we need to move on. Otherwise, Felipe, thank you very much, and I hope that your class is going to yield the same type of work, and we're looking forward to seeing the final results. And we really enjoyed this lecture, and thank you for taking the time and showing us your work.
Okay, thank you, Jaime. Thank you, Rodolfo, and all of us to be here. Bye.
Okay. Thank you very much, and goodbye.